Christianity is literally the fucking devil, yo. It's crazy because the same God that they worship in Christianity is the same devil that they tell you to be weary of. It says that the devil should be able to deceive even the elite. Look what's going on in the state of the world. You can't have an all-loving God and have a Christian capitalist. You can't have an all-loving God and have a capitalist healthcare system. You follow my drift?
So let's give a quick response to this. So there are three principles of logic, and now these three principles are given as laws. The first law is the law of identity. So this law states that something is what it is, and it cannot be both itself and something else at the same time. And the second law is the law of non-contradiction. This law states that something cannot both be and not be at the same time. And the third law is the law of the excluded middle, which states that a statement is either true or false, and nothing in the middle. So what's my point? My point is God cannot be both God and Satan at the same time. We either have God and no Satan, or Satan and no God, or we have both but separate persons, which is more consistent and a historically and an observable and practically intelligible option. So God is the father of light, and Satan is the father of lies and deception, might I add. Further to that, it is very possible, without disrupting the above principles, to have an oppressive and an abusive capitalist society or government organs that are said to be Christian, that is Christian, while God is all-loving. This is because God is not Christianity, and Christianity is not God. The distinctions are more than obvious. God is perfect, and not all who wear the brand Christian are truly Christian.
You can't have an all-loving God, but want women to be submissive. That's not all-loving. That's literally deceiving.
John chapter 14 verse 15 says that if you love me, keep my commands. Now on the spiritual side of things, obedience unto God is a way of displaying our love to and for him, because we do not abrogate or violate the truth he exposes us to. On the more unspiritual side then of things, love has languages, and most of us do already know these languages. Here are the 5 languages of love. So the first one is words of affirmation, quality time, receiving gifts, acts of service, and physical touch. Therefore, submission is an act of love, since you cannot serve unless you submit. Put practically, unless this brother enjoys being disrespected and rebelled against by his partner, then his argument lacks both logical, ethical, and practical consistency, because this is imposing rebellion against God, which he, as a man, would not endure nor tolerate if it were done against him by his partner, which then would mean hypocrisy. If you impose on others what you cannot maintain, that's hypocrisy. You don't need to be spiritual to understand this. You just need to understand the basic mechanisms that make the family institution work. Then you extrapolate those basic mechanisms, and that being submission and obedience, and you apply those in functional society, because society is a subsystem of the family.
But if you're Christian, I ain't even here to try to change your thought pattern. I ain't even here to change your mind. You want to know why? Because you're being deceived. But I'll leave you with this. You cannot be serving an all-loving, righteous God if you're not going out here looking at different people's situations and seeking to understand them and bring them up to a level of awareness physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. But you probably think you're doing that, but you're not. You're judging.
Now, a distinction needs to be made between right and wrong in accordance to a transcendent standard. We cannot know right to wrong as mankind unless an all-perfect being first prescribes the standard. Now, who among us is that perfect being? Is that you? Is that me? Is it us? Is it Satan? It is God, whose perfection and moral excellence are reflected through the 10 commandments. Jesus provides us with a summary of all of them. The highest commandment is to love the Lord with all of your heart, your soul, and your mind. And the second is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So the wrong thing, I suppose, that this brother maintains is loving God and neighbors, while the right would be to hate God and to hate your neighbor as you hate yourself. I don't know, help me out. So secondly, religion has been often vilified such that the word itself has become seemingly scandalous because of secular popular culture and a clear misconception of the view of scripture regarding religion. So what is true and undefiled religion, which is outward acts before God? James chapter 1:27 says to visit, to help, and to care for the orphans and widows in their affliction and their need, and to keep one's self unspotted and uncontaminated from the world. That means, in other words, to remain holy and in purity. Unless someone has a proprietary grasp of this, religion will always appear evil in the eye of the uncomprehending. Or the uncomprehending is in fact a lover of evil, unrighteousness, and obscurity. But for light has come into the world, but the world loved darkness instead of the light, because their deeds were evil.